So your cooling fan should come on anytime that the car is starting to get overheated. And they'll also come on if you're using your AC system because it has to blow that air across your condenser. And then some cars have one fan, some cars have two fans, just kind of depends on the car. But if your car is overheating and the fans aren't coming on, there's definitely something wrong. And it could be several different things. Now, if you have the right tools, you can actually just connect direct power up to the fans to make sure that they're actually working. And if you hook the power up to them and they're not turning on, then the fans are bad, so just replace the fans. But if you hook power up to them and they do come on, then you got to start tracing the electrical system to figure out why it's not getting the signal to actually turn the fans on. And this could be something as simple as a bad fuse or a relay or even a temperature sensor. But honestly, I don't think that's going to actually fix your problem. And I say that because I've watched several of your videos and it seems like you keep adding coolant to the system, which means there's some kind of leak somewhere. If it was an external leak, then you'd have a puddle of coolant under the car. And if it's an internal leak, then you have a few different options of what could be happening. The first is if you have a blown head gasket, which I know you mentioned in another video. If the coolant is getting into the oil, then you'd pull that dipstick and it would look like a milkshake, which it didn't seem like the case when you pulled the oil to check it. It looked like it was just regular oil, so the coolant's probably not getting into the oil. But your head gasket could still be blown and the coolant is just getting into the cylinder, in which case your car's going to be blowing a cloud of smoke out the tailpipe whenever it's running, because as that coolant gets into the cylinder, it's getting burned up and it's going to come out the tailpipe. Now, the easiest way to check if it's a blown head gasket is to go to your local parts store and get a block tester kit. And basically that little kit is going to have some purple fluid that you're going to put in like a little vial thing and put it in your radiator cap area, and then start your car and see if that changes colors. If it changes to yellow, then you have a blown head gasket because the exhaust gases are coming up through the coolant. But if it stays purple, then it should be good. No bad head gasket. Now, the other thing that you can do is you could actually pressurize the system and do a pressure test on it. So again, if you go to your local parts store, they should have a pressure tester that you can actually rent. Basically, you pay for it, and then when you bring it back, they'll give you your money back. But anyway, you're going to take your radiator cap off again. You're going to put that little tool on there, pump it up. Make sure you read your cap first, because it's going to say like 15 PSI or something like that. Make sure that you don't pump it up beyond that point, but pump it up there and see if it'll hold that pressure for like 10-15 minutes. If it doesn't, if the pressure starts coming down, you do have a leak somewhere. But the good news is that should push the coolant out of the leak. So you can kind of watch it as it's sitting there and check around your engine bay and see if you can see anything leaking. And then one last thing that you can check, which kind of helps diagnose water pumps as well, which I know you said that you already had yours replaced. But if you have your car running, turn on the heater full blast and see if it's actually blowing out hot air or not. Obviously, you're going to want to do this when it's a little bit cooler outside so you can tell the difference between ambient air and hot air. But if it's not blowing out hot, then chances are your water pump's bad because it's not pushing the fluid through the radiator core or the heater core in order to get that hot air into your cab. The other thing that might do is if you have a puddle of coolant on your passenger side floorboard, chances are your heater core is leaking, and that could be the leak. And I guess lastly, whenever you do any kind of work on your cooling system, there's a chance that you can get an air pocket inside the system, which just means that a thing of air is trapped inside your engine, and that will cause an overheating condition. Usually, if you drive it down the freeway, kind of get on it a little bit, it'll get that air bubble to come out. If not, you can kind of take the cap off of your radiator, put your car on an angle, let it run for a while, and kind of squeeze the hose to get the air bubbles to come out. And then once that does, just fill it back up and it should be good to go. But ultimately, that's everything that I would kind of look for to see why it's overheating. If the cooling fans aren't coming on, though, that's something that definitely needs to be fixed, anyway. But hopefully this helps. And I figured I just have to say this. Anytime you're working on the cooling system, never take off the cap when the system is hot, just because it builds a lot of pressure. It's going to blast all that stuff out of there. You're going to get burned. So make sure you never remove the cap when the vehicle is hot.